You were raised to believe a smile signals safety, that a gentle voice carries truth. When someone spoke softly, you leaned in, trusting their warmth as proof of goodness. But time and again, you've been betrayed, not by loud threats or open cruelty, but by the quiet deception of those who wielded kindness as a weapon. Their softness left no visible wounds, only a lingering ache you couldn't name. Machiavelli saw through this illusion. Power rests with those who craft appearances, not those who merely embody virtue. You poured your heart into people who mirrored your openness, not because they valued you, but because you fell for their carefully constructed facade. The mistake was tying charm to character, assuming a friendly face couldn't hide a calculating mind. You weren't foolish. You were conditioned to equate friendliness with honesty. Yet, in a world governed by strategy, trust is a trap. Those who hurt you don't strike with force. They watch, learning your patterns to steer you like a pawn. To rise above, you must become unreadable. Keep your intentions close, let silence cloak your vulnerabilities. Your honesty, once a gift, has been twisted into a tool for others to exploit. Stop explaining yourself. Let their uncertainty grow. They'll call you distant, cold, but that's merely their panic at losing their grip on you. Machiavelli taught that true power lies in being unseen, not understood. Your absence holds a weight your presence never could. Step back, not in anger but in clarity, and become a force they cannot predict, a presence they cannot control. This truth stings because it reveals a flaw in how you've navigated the world. From childhood, you were taught to see warmth as a sign of safety, to lower your defenses when someone offered a kind word or a reassuring glance. You learned to trust the surface, smiles, soft tones, gestures of affection, believing they reflected a pure heart. But life has shown you otherwise. The betrayals that cut deepest didn't come from enemies shouting their intentions. They came from those who spoke gently, who seemed to care, who knew exactly how to make you feel safe while plotting their own gain. These wounds are invisible, not marked by bruises or blood, but by a quiet erosion of trust in your own judgment. You believed their act because you wanted to believe in goodness, in connection, in a world where sincerity is the default. But Machiavelli's wisdom cuts through this hope. People deceive willingly, not always out of malice, but because deception is a tool of survival. The world doesn't reward those who are good. It elevates those who appear good while playing a deeper, more calculated game. Reflect on the times you've been deceived. It wasn't the loud, obvious threats that caught you off guard. It was the subtle ones. The colleague who praised you while undermining your work. The friend who listened attentively only to use your secrets later. The partner who promised loyalty but studied your weaknesses to keep you close. These weren't monsters. They were actors, wearing masks tailored to your expectations. They learned what made you open up, your kindness, your need for validation, and gave you just enough to keep you hooked. You handed over your trust, your time, your heart, not because they earned it, but because their performance felt real. This is the lie that binds you, the belief that warmth proves intent, that a gentle demeanor can't conceal a hidden agenda. But it can. And it does every day in ways you're only beginning to see. You weren't weak for falling for this. You were shaped to. Society trained you to associate charm with safety, to see suspicion as bitterness, to view distrust as a flaw. From a young age, you were told to be open, to give people the benefit of the doubt, to believe that kindness begets kindness. But this conditioning left you vulnerable in a world where not everyone plays by those rules. In a strategic landscape, emotional openness is a liability, a crack through which others can slip to manipulate you. Those who hurt you don't need to overpower you. They only need to understand you. They watch how you respond to praise, how you soften under pressure, how you seek approval. With that knowledge, they don't need force. They need only the right words, the right tone, to guide you where they want you to go. To break free, you must rewrite the rules you live by. Triumph doesn't come from being the loudest or the most emotional. It comes from being unpredictable. Stop laying your plans bare. Let your intentions remain a mystery. Your fears, your dreams, your weaknesses, guard them like treasures. Your honesty, once a bridge to others, has too often been a weapon they turned against you. Every time you overshared, explained your motives, or sought to be understood, you gave them a map to your mind. That map has been used to navigate you, to anticipate your moves, to keep you in check. Now it's time to burn it. Speak less, reveal less. Let your silence create questions they can't answer. When they don't know what you want, they can't guess what you fear. And when they can't read your fear, they can't exploit it. This shift won't be easy. You've been taught that openness builds trust, that vulnerability fosters connection. But in a world where appearances trump reality, vulnerability is a currency you can't afford to spend freely. Machiavelli didn't advocate for cruelty. He advocated for clarity. He understood that transparency invites interference, that those who know your direction will try to bend it to their will. Not because they're evil, but because people are inherently strategic, driven by fear, envy, or the need to feel in control. If they see your next step, they'll prepare to counter it. If they know your desires, they'll use them as leverage. Your job is to stay one step ahead, not by deceiving others, but by protecting yourself. Let them assume, but never confirm. Let their guesses fall short. Your power grows not in what you share, but in what you withhold. They'll notice the change. When you stop explaining, stop seeking their approval, they'll sense the shift. They'll call you aloof, calculated, even heartless. Let them. Those accusations are the sound of their control slipping away. They're not upset because you're wrong. They're unsettled because they can no longer predict you. They relied on your transparency, your predictable kindness, to feel secure in their influence over you. Now, as you pull back, they're left grasping at shadows. Machiavelli knew this. Power lies in being a puzzle, not an open book. The virtuous may shine in light, but light makes you a target. To outsmart those who would use you, you must learn to walk in shadow, not to harm, but to shield yourself. Your silence becomes your armor, your absence your greatest weapon. You once thought constant presence proved your worth. You showed up, gave your time, your energy, your loyalty, believing that availability was a virtue. You stayed even when they didn't notice, even when they didn't deserve it, because you were taught that consistency equals care. But what if it does? What if your unwavering presence is what they've come to take for granted? Machiavelli saw through this myth. Power fades when it's too accessible. The more familiar you are, the less they value you. You become like furniture, always there, rarely noticed. The strongest move isn't to stay, it's to withdraw. Not out of weakness, but out of strategy. Absence teaches what presence cannot. It teaches weight, consequence, value. Think about it. When you pull back, they start to feel the void. When you stop initiating, stop offering more than they give, they question why you're no longer there. Your absence isn't emptiness, it's power held in reserve. It's silence with purpose. You feared that stepping away means being forgotten, but Machiavelli would argue the opposite. People don't chase what they own, they chase what they fear losing. When you're always present, they stop seeing you. But when you vanish at the height of your relevance, you become a question they can't answer, a presence they can't replace. This isn't about playing games, it's about refusing to be played. Your availability is a tool, and tools must be used with precision, not given away freely. This shift requires courage. You've been conditioned to fear absence, to believe that stepping back makes you irrelevant. But irrelevance comes from being too predictable, too accessible. When you withdraw, you create tension. You disrupt the rhythm they've grown used to. They'll wonder where you went, what you're planning, why you're no longer the person they could count on to show up. Let them wonder. Let them sit in the silence you leave behind. That silence is your shield, your strength. It forces them to confront the value of what they once took for granted. And in that moment, you reclaim control, not by demanding it, but by refusing to give it away. You've also been living in a story others wrote for you. They cast you as the dependable one, the forgiver, the one who bends to keep the peace. You played the role because you thought it was love, connection, duty. But it wasn't. It was control, dressed in the guise of familiarity. You didn't see it at first. How you stopped asking for what you needed, how your voice softened when it should have sharpened, how your boundaries became negotiable. You told yourself you were compromising, but you were shrinking, sacrificing pieces of yourself to fit their narrative. They praised you for it, your patience, your grace. but only because your silence made their lives easier. You weren't admired, you were managed. Machiavelli understood this dynamic. People are loyal to the version of you that serves them, not to your truth. They don't want to know you, they want to know how to move you. When you stop performing their script, they'll push back. They'll call you selfish, distant, changed. They'll accuse you of withholding because you're no longer the predictable character they relied on. But that's the point. You're not here to be their mirror reflecting their needs. You're here to be sovereign, to write your own story. Burn their script. Let them feel the absence of your compliance. The discomfort they feel isn't your failure, it's your freedom. This freedom comes from redefining how you see yourself. You've been chasing approval, trying to be understood, believing that being liked is the same as being powerful. But power doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being unshakable. You don't need their validation to act. You don't need their understanding to move forward. When they mislabel you, call you cold, arrogant, detached, don't flinch. Those are distractions, attempts to pull you back into their frame. Stay still, silent, unmoved. That's the essence of control, not reacting, not explaining, but standing firm in your truth. You don't need to be loud to be heard. You need to be untouchable. You've also been too patient with disrespect. You thought waiting, staying calm, giving them time to correct themselves was strength. But it taught them your boundaries are flexible, that your silence means permission. Machiavelli knew that tolerated disrespect doesn't fade, it grows. Without consequences, people assume they can push further. You've delayed, weighed your words, waited for the right moment, but power doesn't wait. It acts, quietly, precisely, without fanfare. You don't need to shout or argue. You need to enforce your boundaries with indifference, a silence that cuts deeper than any speech. Stop explaining why their actions hurt you. Stop seeking reconciliation when what's needed is distance. Disrespect is a test, asking how much of yourself you're willing to lose to keep them comfortable. Answer with absence, not words. Those who claim to care often know exactly how to reach you. They've studied your patterns, how you respond to guilt, how you soften under pressure, how you crave connection. They don't need to force you, they need only familiarity. You've made it too easy, answering every question, explaining every silence, justifying every choice. In the name of trust, you became transparent, but transparency is vulnerability without limits. Once they know your script, they direct the play. You thought it was partnership, but it was choreography, control wrapped in intimacy. Every time you forgave too quickly, they noted the gap between your pain and your pardon. They don't fear your boundaries because they know they're negotiable. Change that. Become unreadable. Let your silence mean finality, not hesitation. When they can't predict your response, they lose their map. And when they lose their map, they lose their power over you. You've mistaken emotional openness for strength, believing that sharing your heart makes you authentic. But authenticity doesn't mean exposing every thought, every fear, to those who haven't earned it. Machiavelli warned, never reveal the full shape of your mind, even to those closest to you. Not because closeness is wrong, but because predictability is surrender. The more they know, the more they can navigate you, turning your desires into levers, your fears into chains. Stop being a manual they can read when they need to manage you. Be a presence they must reckon with, not a puzzle they've already solved. Let your detachment unsettle them, your silence stretch longer than they expect. You don't need to punish them, you need to protect yourself. When they can't guess your next move, they stop trying to control the game. That's when you lead, not by shouting, but by being untouchable. Loyalty has been your badge, proof of your character. You stayed long after they stopped earning your presence, giving, forgiving, believing that endurance was noble. But Machiavelli would call this a trap. Loyalty without boundaries is servitude. They weren't loyal to you, they were loyal to what you gave them. Your stability, your silence, your willingness to overlook their flaws. You called it love, duty, but it was fear. Fear of starting over, fear of being alone. You stayed loyal to their potential, to fleeting moments of kindness, while they took your presence for granted. They learned your forgiveness had no limit, that your love came without cost. That's not loyalty, that's access, and they used it to keep you tethered. Stop calling it strength when it's really surrender. The most powerful act isn't staying, it's leaving when staying costs your soul. You're not an anchor meant to hold others steady through their chaos. You're not a test of how much they can take before you break. You're loyal to your peace, your dignity, your worth. Make them earn your presence. If they can't, let them feel the weight of your absence. People don't value what's always there. They value what they fear losing. When you walk away, you teach the world your price. Your worth isn't in how long you stay. It's in how swiftly you leave when respect is no longer mutual. You thought goodness would protect you. If you were kind enough, gentle enough, the world would mirror your warmth. But it didn't. They took more, demanded more, until there was nothing left to give. You mistook your kindness for armor, but it was a signal, an invitation to those who saw your softness as weakness. Machiavelli didn't reject goodness. He saw its limits. In a world of predators, innocence is a target. It tells others you won't resist, that you'll endure rather than retaliate. You smiled when you should have stood firm, apologized for your needs as if they were burdens. You shrank to be lovable, believing that being good was enough. But goodness doesn't command respect, it invites exploitation. Look at those who hold power. They don't avoid conflict, they set the tone. They don't flinch, they move with purpose. They don't need approval to act. You're not here to be palatable, to soften yourself for others' comfort. You're here to exist, unapologetically. If your presence unsettles, let it. You've bent long enough trying to be easy to love. Being good made you predictable, and predictable people are controllable. Stop hiding behind kindness. Stop believing your virtue will shield you. This isn't about becoming cruel, it's about becoming real. Stand in your truth, even if it shakes the room. Your power lies not in being liked, but in being undeniable. They wrote a role for you the moment you met them. Not with words, but through expectations. Be the reliable one, the forgiver, the one who stays quiet to keep the peace. You played it, thinking it was connection, but it was control in disguise. You stopped voicing your needs, softened your edges, made yourself smaller to fit their story. They praised your sacrifice, your maturity, but only because it served them. You weren't valued, you were managed. Machiavelli knew people cling to the version of you that benefits them, not your truth. When you stop playing their part, they'll resist. They'll call you cold, selfish, because you're no longer their predictable pawn. That's when you know you're free. Burn their script. Speak before you're asked. Walk away without explaining. Their discomfort is proof you've broken their hold. You're not here to reflect their needs. You're here to be unedited, unrestrained yourself. The moment you stop living their version of you, you reclaim the power you buried. You walk into a room, and no one knows your thoughts. Your silence carries weight, your gaze holds steady. You don't soften to be digestible. You've become unreadable, and in a world that thrives on control, that's what makes you untouchable. This is your evolution, not louder but quieter, not emotional but precise. They reach for the old ways to move you, guilt, praise, rejection, and find nothing. You've broken their patterns, severed their script. You don't chase approval or beg for understanding. You move by choice, speak by design. They call it arrogance, but it's sovereignty. They fear not what you say, but what they can't predict. You're no longer a mirror for their desires. You're a wall they can't climb, a silence they can't pierce. Let them feel the echo of your absence, the weight of what they lost. You are the question they can't answer, the storm that needs no voice. This is your power, reclaimed not through noise, but through the strength in silence.